Welcome to In Via, the podcast where we're navigating the pilgrimage of life. We are all in Via, on the way, and we are learning a lot as we go. I'm your host, Joan Watson. Join me as we listen to stories, discover travel tips, and learn more about our Catholic faith. Along the way, we'll see that if God seeks to meet us in Jerusalem, Rome, or Santiago, He also wants to encounter you right there in your car, on your run, or in the middle of your workday. Welcome back, everybody, to In Via, the podcast where we are navigating the pilgrimage of daily life. And today, to talk about pilgrimage, to talk about daily life, is my friend, I think I'm allowed to call you my friend Rachel Gilman, the Director of Youth Ministry for the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. Hello, Rachel.
Hi. Yes, you could definitely call me a friend, Joan. We're there.
Good. We've gone through battle together and we've survived, and now we're friends. So, Rachel, I want to tell our audience how I first met you. I first met Rachel at the O'Hare Airport as she got off a bus. It seems very long ago, but Rachel was the leader for Archindy's World Youth Day trip. And so Rachel and I together led 190 odd people. And 190, right?
I think 182 or something.
182.
Is the official number. Yeah.
Okay. I realized it sounded like I said that all those people were odd, and that's not what I meant. Not 190 odd people.
Whoops.
But 190-ish. So 180-ish people through Lisbon, and it was wonderful. And so Rachel and I bonded over that. So today I want to start by sharing with our audience who Rachel is, because I know a little bit about Rachel. But Rachel, if you could describe yourself in 3 sentences, only 3 sentences, what would those sentences be?
Yeah. Okay. Sentence 1. I would say that I love to laugh, and you'll probably hear this throughout the podcast. I'm a major giggler, but I just find joy in life like everywhere. So laughter is my expression of that. 2, I like to call myself a fun, competitive person. So I am actually uber competitive in like everything I do, but I always tell myself there's a threshold. So I have to have fun and make sure other people are having fun. But if you were to ask my closest friends, they'd be like, oh yeah, she's super competitive. So I try to hide it, but it's kind of hard to. And then number 3, I've been described as like already living a fantastic retired woman's life because I love to do puzzles and paint by numbers and read. And so my friends always make fun of me because I'll sit on my couch and do a puzzle and watch TV, and they're like, you're set, you're ready to go.
Oh gosh, I love it. I love it. I can see, like, I didn't even know those things about you before we went to World Youth Day, and I can see why we got along so well. I love, like, that sounds like an ideal night. Like, why not stay home and do a puzzle? And like, that sounds lovely. But also your gift of laughter is such a joy and such a gift for others. And so I want to affirm you in that. I think that's a gift from God that
Thank you.
It really, I think, got us through a lot. And I think it gets you, like, I think approaching life that way is just the better way to approach life. Like, just with joy. And even when stuff is frustrating and even when stuff's hard, like, okay, like the Lord's got it. We'll get through it. Like, we'll survive. So that was a gift to me. So thank you for being a laugher.
Oh, thank you. That's good. So sweet. Yeah, I agree though. Yeah.
So Rachel, you went to World Youth Day, but you've been on pilgrimage even before that. So would you just tell me a little bit about maybe your first pilgrimage or your favorite pilgrimage or a pilgrimage that stands out to you?
Yeah. My very first pilgrimage I went on, I believe it was summer of 2019. And we went to Italy with my parish. I was working there as a youth minister at the time, but I decided to go for myself. So
Nice.
I paid the money. I wanted it to be fully a pilgrimage experience, even though it's technically on staff, and decided to go. And so we went to Rome, and then we went to Assisi, and then Florence, and then Siena. So we did a pretty good tour of Italy. I think it ended up being about 10 days long in total, but just phenomenal experience.
Beautiful. And this was your first time in Italy then?
No, actually, this
Oh,
that was my second time, but
okay.
the first time I went, I was studying abroad in college, so I
Okay.
very much looked at travel differently.
Yeah.
So I had been to all those places except Assisi and Siena, but literally only went for like 2 days in a massive, like, travel
Mm,
backpack around Europe experience. So, it was really, really fun to go back in a
yeah.
prayerful way, because
Yeah.
I hadn't really approached it that way, right? I was trying
Yeah.
to see the major sites the first time and just be on vacation and have fun as a 21-year-old. So,
Sure.
very different from coming back in my late 20s on a pilgrimage.
Yes. I mean, you were in a different place, spiritually, I'm sure, intellectually,
Mhm.
maturity wise. And then would you say, like, did you prepare in any different way when you went on pilgrimage versus going just kind of as a tourist? Or did you go in, like, just say, like, let's see what happens?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I was a lot more intentional just about my preparation when it was a pilgrimage.
Hmm.
I mean, I would collect prayer intentions from friends and family to bring with me. I also just tried to read more about the saints that I would encounter. So I was trying to
Mm,
get some of the history as well, and prepare myself for essentially like a deeper connection to the experiences I was going to have. Whereas the first time it was very much just like, what train am I getting on? And like, do
right.
I have a map? Because again, this is pre-smartphone time. So
Yeah.
I like had paper maps up the wazoo. So like it was more just like, how do I get from point A to point B? And what are my top three things I want to do? Whereas the pilgrimage was way more spiritually led at the beginning in my preparation.
Yeah. I remember talking to you when we were over there about how, like, how did our parents let us go before smartphones? I mean,
Yes.
we didn't know what we didn't have, obviously, but I mean, I remember, like, when I studied abroad, like, arriving in a city with no idea where I was going, where I was sleeping that night, and somehow that seemed okay. And now I'd be
Yeah.
terrified to let myself do that, much less my children.
I
Yeah.
know it's crazy how much things have changed. Like I literally would walk around with a map in front of my face and my whole group would follow me. I like got became the designated leader and I look back at that now and I'm like, that is insane. But I was so confident. Didn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting kind of to reflect on the fact that technology in some ways has made pilgrimage harder in that it's a distraction, right? Like we can still stay
Mhm.
so connected even when we're on pilgrimage and we can, even Instagram can still be a distraction when you're on pilgrimage if you have a data plan, right? But at the same time, it can, if we use it well with Google Maps and maybe Google Translate, it can help us enter into the pilgrimage differently because we don't have to worry about some of the details, right? We can really focus
Mhm.
on that spiritual side of things. It's interesting to kind of reflect on what technology has done or not done for the spirit of the pilgrim, right? Because most of our lives, most of church history, I should say, we didn't have technology to help us on pilgrimage.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
interesting.
I agree with that.
Did you well, I guess I hate when people ask a question like, "What was your favorite part of Rome?" Because there's so much. But is there a church or a saint in those four cities that stands out to you that you maybe discovered for the first time or rediscovered, or whether it's a saint story or a church or even an unquote unquote like sacred place that really sticks out in those four cities as a place of encounter for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just first in general, I was amazed at how many religious artifacts, how many saints' bodies were buried in all the places we went. And again, I like completely missed that when I
Mm,
had gone the first time. And so that in itself was just profound to me was that I could every church I went to, which was only like a couple blocks away from each other, had a saint that I actually recognized, like buried
mhm,
there, or
mhm.
a piece like a piece of Jesus's cross or something, or it was just profound to me how prevalent all of that was, no matter where we were in those cities. But yeah, there's definitely a few things that stand out to me. Number one was the holy stairs, and when we went to that, we got extremely lucky because they had exposed them. to the original steps were exposed. So normally, right, they're covered to protect them, so that they can be present for hopefully hundreds and hundreds of years. But when we were there, I can't remember if they were just refurbishing or cleaning. I don't
Hmm.
remember, to be honest.
Yeah.
But they told us, they're like, this is so rare that you can go up these steps, and these are the exact ones. Like your knees are gonna hit the exact steps that Jesus walked up when he was meeting Pontius Pilate. And so that moment was incredibly profound for me. Number one, I didn't even know these existed. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know these steps existed. But then number two, like in the moment of kneeling, and I decided to pray for one intention that someone had given me on each step as my way
Mm.
of sacrificing for that person as I
Wow.
went up them. And yeah, it was just one of those moments where I think I really connected the dots on like sacrifice and
Mm.
praying in the midst of sacrifice and pain for people and how that is connected. So it just really stands out to me. I just feel very lucky that I had that experience. And even, I mean, I got to do it twice when we went back for our pre-extension for World Youth Day, but just that first moment of knowing these were the exact steps, they weren't even covered. I got to be
Yeah.
on the exact steps that Jesus walked on.
That's incredible. So those are for people who haven't been to Rome. They're actually right near St. John Lateran, which is the Cathedral of Rome. People think of St. Peter's as being the cathedral, but St. John Lateran is actually the Cathedral of Rome. It's where the bishop's chair, the Pope's chair, is. And so the Holy Father actually lived at St. John Lateran longer in church history, longer than he's lived at St. Peter's. And so he lived there, and the Holy Stairs actually went up to his private chapel. So the holy stairs are those stairs, as Rachel said, that Jesus would have walked up and down as he went to Pilate to stand trial. And they were renovating them when you were there. That's incredible. They renovated the entire chapel. And so you were one of the few people that got to really be on the actual stair. So now if you go up the stairs, you go up on the wood, which I think even going up on the wood is a beautiful meditation on the church history, because the wood is actually warped from all the knees of the pilgrims. And to think of how many pilgrims have gone before us,
Mhm.
and saints, like great saints like Saint Therese did the holy stairs. And so I'm sure maybe possibly like Saint Francis of Assisi, I don't know when they were completely open to the public, but just reflecting on the people who've gone before us in that wood, I was really worried they were going to put new wood when they put the wood back on. I was like, oh no, they're going to put new wood,
Mm.
and that's going to kind of lose the charm and the comfort, because the trick to the holy stairs is that you want to like get your knee in that divot to do it, and to find your comfort spot. But
Yeah.
I thought
Yes.
that's such a beautiful approach to the holy stairs, what you did, praying for people on each stair, and approaching, because you can approach the holy stairs in lots of different ways. Some people do the rosary, some people do the Divine Mercy Chaplet, but I love praying for someone in particular on each stair. That's really powerful. And the sacrifice that comes with pilgrimage are sometimes plentiful, and sometimes they're things that we seek out, right? Like the holy stairs are not easy to do. And but I've seen people of all ages and all backgrounds do the holy stairs, and it's really profound. I mean, I've been on the holy stairs with one of my pilgrims once,
Mhm.
and I think he was probably 85 or 86, and I had no idea that he was going to try to do it, and he did it, and it was remarkably profound to see someone like
Wow.
that sacrificing and entering into that prayer. So the holy stairs, such a powerful experience. I love how you also mentioned how
Mhm.
you don't even know what you're going to find in these churches. And we talk on the podcast about the
Mhm. Yeah.
like the open heart and the open hands of a pilgrim. But I think you've brought up the importance of having open eyes and taking time to really be in a church and pray in a church and see what the church has that you might not even have known it was there. Can you think of a specific example of when you were surprised? I guess the Holy Stairs you were surprised, but another time where you were surprised to find someone or something?
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, I think I had several of those moments, but there's two that really stand out to me. Gosh, I cannot remember what church it's in. Again, we went to so many, so maybe you can help me with it. But I just remember we walked into the church, and, and our pilgrimage guide was just like, oh yeah, and there's like the table from the Last Supper up there,
Yes.
but it was like an afterthought. And I was just blown away by the fact like that was an afterthought. Was like, oh yeah, that table is right there. And I just like I don't know, I was just shocked. Like I was like, seriously, that's there? And I just stood there like 5 minutes staring at it because
Yeah.
I mean that's incredible. Um but that just like happened multiple times. So that definitely stands out to me. And then also we went into another church where there were essentially like a back small chapel where there were several artifacts, but it's specifically
Mm.
related to Jesus' crucifixion. So, like a piece of the cross
Mhm.
nail, one of, or I think one or multiple of the nails that were used in his crucifixion, and it was just was like one of those moments too. It was like, okay, go back there,
Yeah.
and then back there, here's what is
Yeah.
there, and I was like, are you kidding? Wait, what? Are you kidding me? And so like um because the people guiding us, right, have like seen him so many times, I think, like part of them is like, oh yeah, here it is. They've experienced it. But like for someone who is saying this for the first time, like just just the casual nature of like, oh yeah, no biggie. Here's some like really profound artifacts from Jesus's
Yeah.
own life and in fact like his death and you get to look at them up close. And so that those two moments stand out to me
Yeah.
the most because it
And
just was so
Rachel's now given
shocking
us
and
a
so
good itinerary for Rome because you can do all of the things that she mentioned in a morning because you can do the Holy Stairs and then the Table of the Last Supper is right across the street in the Church of John Lateran, the Cathedral of Rome. And then the relics of the Passion are down the street in St. Helen's Church called Santa Croce in Gerusalemme, the Holy Cross of Jerusalem. And that's down the street. And so you've just given us a perfect morning in Rome where we can meditate on the
oh my
Passion.
gosh.
And the Santa Croce is another church that so many people miss. I mean, I think it's one of the 7 pilgrim churches of Rome that St. Philip Neri used to do a pilgrimage, and we'll have a whole podcast episode about the pilgrim churches of Rome. But the Santa Croce, I think, is often missed on many itineraries, and it's so close to St. John Lateran. It's right there, and like it's often empty. Like you
Hmm.
walk in and there's no one even near the relics, and you're like, this
Yeah.
is the true cross of our Lord.
Hmm.
Hello. It's incredible. And just that reminder, and I think
Yeah,
this is the beauty of
it's
relics,
amazing.
the reminder that all these things really happened. Like you just kneel at the thorn, like you can see one of the thorns, or the crown of thorns, and you just think, wow, this isn't something we just made up. This isn't just a story. And I know that sounds ridiculous because we do this for a living, you and I, telling people about the story of Jesus Christ. But we have to have those tangible reminders that
Yeah.
this happened in time, right? In history, in space. God died for us. And here is the thorn that pierced our Savior's
Hmm.
forehead. Like it's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, I oh my gosh, I completely agree with you. Yeah, it's funny to say of like, oh yeah, again, like this really happened, but I mean, seeing the tangible elements of his death, like seeing things that literally would have caused him pain and like held him to the cross, it strikes you in a different way than just
Yeah.
talking about it
And
and
that's
learning about
such
it
the
for
beauty of
sure.
pilgrimage, is to have these experiences outside of our normal everyday life, to then come back home and say, like, this is what I saw. This is what I experienced. And when we pray the Stations of the Cross, to be
Hmm.
able to picture the things we've actually seen with our own eyes, you know.
Yeah.
Did you get to see the Holy Father when you were in Rome, or was he, like out on vacation or something?
No, I did. We actually had a fantastic experience. Again, our pilgrimage guide for this particular pilgrimage had done this exact like itinerary so many times. So he had like a master plan for his audience on Wednesday, and so we ended up getting literally front row seats to the like a section so that when he drove by he was right in front of us, and I just I was kind of speechless when it happened because I
Mm-hmm.
just never
Mm-hmm.
imagined we'd end up that close. So that was such a beautiful moment
Yeah.
for myself, but our group in
I
general
think
too.
every time I see the Holy Father, I hope I never get jaded by it and just like, oh, there he is, And I think with World Youth Day, I was kind of
Mhm.
worried that I would be jaded because I'd seen him up close and I had seen him, in different settings. But I think one thing, especially for World Youth Day, that helped was seeing other people see him and seeing the joy of those kids that were seeing him for the first time, and like the people running to see him. And it was just really powerful to lead that group in that way, and to witness it through their eyes. That's what I love about leading pilgrimages, is to like put yourself, like your tour leader, how many times has he been to Rome? A million, right? But each time he goes, he gets to see it through your eyes, and he gets to see it, which I think is a really powerful moment. So we did see the Pope at World Youth Day. So let's talk a little bit about World Youth Day. And
Yes, we
Rachel,
did.
you had a very different experience
Sure.
for World Youth Day than a pilgrim. I love that you went to Rome as a pilgrim and you made like that specific decision to go for yourself, because it's a very different experience sometimes going when you're a leader. But for World Youth Day, you were a leader, and a fantastic leader, I will say publicly. Really, really fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, were you still able to encounter God even in a different type of pilgrimage when you're actually leading a group?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, yes, absolutely. But I think it
Mm-hmm.
took deeper reflection and awareness to find those moments. As a leader, first of all, I had gone into it. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
guess I had big expectations for myself, not fully, I think,
Mm-hmm.
understanding my role as a group leader for our group. But I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have this profound experience. Like God is gonna come to me in this like bolt of
Mm-hmm.
lightning. Like this is what World Youth Day is all about. And I quickly learned as a leader, like
Yeah.
that wasn't gonna happen for me. And so I had to accept that, which was just very difficult for me. But I realized my role was different, right? Like I wasn't going on pilgrimage; I was there supporting pilgrims. So within the chaos of making decisions and supporting people, I didn't get any of those big moments. But I just like looking back, I had such profound
Mm.
small moments, like where God came to me, and it was I could have missed it. Absolutely. And I just remember specifically reflecting on the final day we were there. We had one free day. So essentially our entire group is scattered throughout Lisbon, which for me was very exciting because then I got a day to myself to explore and to have some moments of quiet and peace. And I was walking and I was super hungry. I was like on a mission. Like, I'm finding lunch. I'm gonna go. And then I passed this church and I just had this like major tug on my heart to stop. But I was like, no, 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 I'm hungry. Like I gotta go. The place I wanted to go was a pretty far walk, and I literally walked past the church and I stopped because I felt this like deep
Mm.
need to like go into this church. So I was like, I think I have to listen. So I walked in and nothing profound. I mean, first of all, it's beautiful. I think every church in Lisbon is beautiful, but there was nothing happening. There were a few people praying, and I just sat down and I had a moment where I just was like, God, I have no idea what you want me to get from this experience. Like, I was looking for connection with you, and I don't know
Mm.
where the heck I was supposed to find that. Like, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I've cried several times. Like, I don't know what you wanted from me from this. And but had this moment where one of my biggest intentions for myself on the pilgrimage was I'm new to my role. So one of my things is I just prayed for confidence in myself in this new position and my capabilities, and that God like really did call me to this and I'm capable of doing this ministry. And I just sat there and I am asking these questions, and then I just had this moment where I was like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, like
Mm.
God answered my prayer. Like I did this. I led 180 people for 2 full weeks through chaos, and millions of people survived, but also like people had a fantastic experience. And I just had that profound moment where I was like, wow, like I guess what I was looking for I wasn't gonna get, but I think I got something so much better. Like, and then leaving that church, I just thought, like, I keep looking for God in such big ways. And all I had to do was stop in a quiet, emptier church and ask these questions, and God spoke to me. And I couldn't help but think, like, wow, in this world you take experience, like God came to me that way. So in my regular life, like how many times have I walked by that quote unquote church, that call to like spend time with him so he can speak to me, and I've ignored it because I'm busy, I'm working, I have things to do. And so it just really struck me quite powerfully, to be honest, even though it's such a simple moment. Um, and then I started, because of that experience, started noticing the way God was coming into my life in such tiny, like, interrupting ways. So again, like, in that moment, I was on my way to lunch. I was like, mission accomplished. I'm gonna eat. And then, like, that tug, like that pull on my heart to stop, even though I didn't want to, but I said yes to it. And I mean, and amazing things happened from that. And then literally the next day at the airport in Madrid, again, mind you, I had been on an overnight bus from Lisbon to Madrid, didn't get much sleep, as you can imagine. We got to the airport at like 5:30 a.m. and we have this guide from Lisbon with us, and she is probably 20, like, very young, very inexperienced, and we're we're in the airport. She has no idea what she's doing, and so I'm teaching her because luckily I'm an avid traveler. That's easy for me. But, we just started talking because of that, and we're waiting in line. The check-in counters aren't even open yet. We got there so early, and she just
Mm,
starts talking to me about her faith and the fact that she doesn't go to church anymore, because of a bad experience she had of people not accepting her, and or even
yeah.
just like being unkind and unwelcoming. And I, in the moment, was like, "No!" Like, it's 5:30 AM, I've got, like, 2 hours of sleep, like, this is the last thing I wanna be doing. But then I just, again, had this moment where I was like, "I think God is calling me to, like, listen to her right now and to, like, talk with her about this." And
Wow.
so we talked for, like, 30 minutes about this, and it was really beautiful. Like, I ended up having moments of, like, challenging her to think about going back to mass, and letting her know, like, maybe she's the person that
Wow.
someone else is looking for. And so even if
Yeah.
she's not finding what she needs, like, maybe God's calling you to go back so that someone like
Wow.
you never has that experience again. And she was
Yeah.
like, it made her think. And I just was like, I never thought at like 5:30 a.m.
Yeah.
I would be capable of this conversation. Um, and so, like, I just realized, I was like, wow. I was like, God, you really work through very normal day-to-day life circumstances, and especially when
Yes.
we most don't want them to happen. And so that's got me reflecting so much being back now. It's just like, where are those tugs in my heart? Where are those moments where maybe I'm crazy busy, but like someone needs me,
Yeah.
and like I can stop even if I'm tired, even if I've got a meeting I got to get to. Like, I really believe in that power of God's pull on our
Yeah.
heart to do what He needs us to do. So, ended up
Yeah.
being really profound, but in a different way,
That's so
in a sweeter way, I think.
powerful. And it's such a good lesson for all of us to take into our lives that, God often doesn't work the way we expect. Like you had expectations of what he might do or how he might act or what World Youth Day would be like. I agree. Like I had this expectation that World Youth Day would be XYZ and it was very different. And just to not be frustrated by that, but to see that the Lord's plan's actually even better and that he did want to work in ways even if they weren't what
Mhm.
they didn't look the way we wanted them to look. And then also that daily life. I love reminding people that like the Lord gives us little gifts in daily life, but if we don't have the open eyes to see them, we're going to miss them. And He's constantly showering us with gifts and opportunities, but we want them to look big and dramatic, and they're often very little, and we end up missing them. And so to have those open eyes, as you I mean, it's funny what you talked about, like making room for him in the quiet. We hear that story of Elijah, right? That the God wasn't in the thunder, and God
Mhm.
wasn't in the wind, and God wasn't in the hurricane, and God was in the small whispering sound. It's one thing to hear that reading.
Yep.
It's another thing to experience it for yourself and to realize, oh, I do need to make room for him to work. If I'm so busy and I'm always talking, he can't
Yeah.
work, and he can't do what he wants to do. So
Mhm. Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. That's I think a profound lesson to take away. And thank you for speaking to that woman, to that girl that needed you, because you don't know how your
Yeah.
words are now going to impact the rest of her life too. So that was beautiful. As we finish, you've given us a lot, I think, to take into our own thoughts and to take into our own quiet prayer with the Lord that we all need. But I want to wrap up with high low disco, which is
Yeah.
a game we kind of play at work where we talk about a high point of pilgrimage, a low point of pilgrimage, and then disco, like just a fun story. And so can we do that with your Italy trip? Maybe you can tell us kind of a high point of your Italy trip, a low point,
Yeah.
and then just a fun story of something that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I like to start with positive. I'm a positive person, so let's start there. One thing that a high point that really stands out to me from my Italy pilgrimage is when we were in Assisi. We visited the tomb of Saint Clare of Assisi, and I had chosen Saint Clare as my confirmation saint way back when in seventh grade when I was 13, and I don't know, it was such a profound moment to say, like, this is a saint I chose because I read her story and liked, the role model she could be for myself. But then to like be in the presence of this person I chose and realize, oh, she was like she's real. Like she did all this and she lived here and here's some more of her story. And like being in that place was so profound and such a connecting point for me of like again 13 years old, did I really know why I was picking St. Clair? I don't know, something tugged at my heart about it, but being able to be there with her and pray and ask for her
Yeah.
intercession right
I
there
love
was
that.
really
I love that.
powerful for me.
St. Clair's my confirmation saint too.
Yeah.
We Isn't that crazy? We didn't, yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh,
I
I
agree. Like,
didn't
I
know
don't
that.
even know
That's
why I
great.
chose. I mean,
Yeah.
she just kind of tugged at my heart, and they say some saints pick us, and I think,
Hmm.
yeah, but that's such a beautiful, peaceful place in her monastery. And if you go to her
Yeah.
basilica, she's buried in the crypt, and she's still behind the grill. So you kneel at the grill because she's still with her sisters, and so the sisters can come and like
Hmm.
change the flowers at her tomb and everything, and she's still in that enclosure. And I just think that's so profound that even now her body remains. Obviously, she's in heaven, but her body remains there in that cloister with her sisters. I think is so beautiful. So. Um, okay, a low
That
point.
is beautiful. Low point. This was actually hard, which is good. I'm happy that this is hard. But I think a low point for me is that we ended up going with about 90 people from our parish, which is a large group to go on pilgrimage. Now it's been eclipsed by my World Youth Day experience, but as a
Yeah.
parish group of like all ages, so we had, I mean, anywhere from teenagers to people in their 80s on this from our parish, and so
Yeah.
that just it was really difficult. I think the large age span and just like the needs of different people was, I think,
Mhm.
frustrating for myself being a younger person who's a little more bodily able, a little more in shape. Like I was like ready for everything, and so like to have these moments where I had to like stop and wait and like be respectful, which again, totally understand that. And like I should be doing that. But at the same time,
Yeah.
it was hard for me. And then like also it just sometimes created a negative
Mhm.
influence on the group as a whole because the I would say it's a generalization, but I would say in general the older age group of our group were often complaining about how much walking we were doing or the food or the hotel accommodations. And so that just was hard to like hear that all the time. And I'm also someone who just wants to
Yeah.
see the good in everything, even when it's tough. So to like have to listen to that a lot of times
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
kind of more of
And,
a low point
group
for me in my
pilgrimages are
experience.
so often a reflection of our life in that we are a member of this church and a member of this world where
Hmm.
we have to put up with people that we wouldn't have chosen to put up with, right? And or like we're on a journey,
Yeah.
we're on a big journey of life, and there's lots of personalities and lots of needs. And how can we forward joyfully and encourage others to? I think sometimes pilgrimage just brings that right to the forefront, right? That this little microcosm of life too. Um,
Yes, it
and then a
does.
disco,
Yeah, absolutely.
something funny.
A disco. Yeah. So when we were in Assisi, I think uh and you might have to fact check me on this, but I believe we got there like just after St. Clair's feast day. And so there, because of that, there is huge, like essentially a huge celebration for, from what I understand, for a week, but we didn't know any, we didn't know any of this. So we get there, and again, like for us, Assisi is like a
Yes.
breath of fresh air. If you've ever gone from Rome to Assisi, you'll understand that. Like from the giant city metropolitan area where it's go 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 to like the beauty of the countryside in Assisi is wonderful. So like we're tired, right? We've done a lot, and I also went on this pilgrimage with my mom. So she came with me. And so we're sharing a room in Assisi, and we're like so excited because we finally have a day to sleep in. Like we're going to travel to Florence, but we're not leaving until later in the morning. And so we're like, yes, finally. And so we, fall asleep the night before we're about to leave till like 6 a.m. Like all of these bells start going off. And I mean, like every single bell in the entire city is ringing, and it's dissonant because they're not all on the same note. So it's like ding, 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 at 6 a.m. And then all of a sudden we hear trumpets. And like in the courtyard, like
Oh my
right outside of our
gosh.
hotel, there's like a giant band of like trumpeters. And we find out later it's like
That's
part of their
awesome.
celebration. But, like, we had no idea, and so I just sat up in bed, like, it's like an
Oh my
alarm, and
gosh.
so I sat up in bed and literally just went, "Are you kidding me?" My mom was so confused, I was like, "I
Oh,
don't know what's happening," but,
that's
like,
hilarious.
I just couldn't stop laughing because I
That's
was like, "Of
hilarious.
course, on a pilgrimage, like, the one day we sleep in, we get woken
And
up by this, like,
only in
giant
Europe, only in
celebration."
Assisi are there trumpets.
And then we get to yeah, I was like, "What?" So we get to Florence and then end up in Siena later that day in our travels. And so we get into our hotel, and again, like we're gonna go to bed, and no joke, that morning we wake up and there's a parade going through the streets at like 6 a.m. And there's like drummers and there's like people yelling, and we find out there just
Oh,
happens to be they're
it
like
was the Palio, I
celebrating.
bet.
They're getting close to
Yes,
their
the
like
Siena
annual
Palio is
horse
always on the
race.
Assumption. Yeah,
Yes. And,
hilarious.
mhm. And so all the neighborhoods are parading through their neighborhood, like showing their pride and their
Awesome.
flags and their colors. We had no idea. So 2 mornings in a row, we get woken up by these loud noises, like music.
That's
And I was just
awesome.
like, you know what? I'm here for this.
That actually has to be one
It
of the
was so
best times
funny.
to go to those cities because the Feast of St. Clair, August 11th, the Palio is a huge horse race and a huge deal in Siena. And so you chose like the best time, but you're also wanting to sleep in and you're like, what the heck is happening? So that's hilarious. That's really
Yeah,
fun. Well,
it
thank
was
you for
funny.
sharing this, Rachel. Thanks for sharing this time. Thank you for helping us remember that we have to have open eyes, whether that means literally looking around us to see what we might stumble upon, or whether it's seeing what the Lord wants to do in the unexpected.
Mhm.
And it was great. It was great to talk to you again. So thanks, Rachel.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This has been so fun.
Thanks, listeners, for listening. And as always, we bring you stories, we bring you travel tips, we bring you all sorts of things as we navigate both actual pilgrimages, but also just the daily pilgrimage of life that we're all on. So thanks for listening. Tell your friends about us. And until next time, God bless.